Well, good day, everybody. I thought it might be fun to do a quick video with a voiceover taking us into a little bit of detail on how to do a 5-color print registration, but also a second video showing you how we print that and the adjustments we make on press. So this one I'm going to show you some tips and traps, and hopefully they'll be useful to you. So stay tuned. We're going to be looking at a 5-color print, which looks something like this. It's just the left chest that we're really going to focus on right now. The back's obviously a lot easier. So get a closer look at that left chest, and we can see that there are 5 colors we've got to print there. None of them are touching. We're not going to use an underbase because we're going to use really nice opaque inks for this one. So it's fairly straightforward to set up. Okay, well, let's get into tip number 1. Tip number 1 is very straightforward. Take your time. Registering a press takes a while, and if you've got a number of colors like this, the 5-color one, it is going to take a while to get it right. And the better you do getting the registration right before you start squeegeeing ink across those screens, the better it's going to be. Once the ink's in the screen, it's much harder to register. So make sure you do spend enough time on this. Don't rush setting up a registration, because when it comes to printing, if it's just a micro out, you'll really regret it. Okay, well, let's take a look at this print job. What we've done here is we laid down some card, some black card, and just stuck it with some spray tack onto the actual platen. And I'm just going to put this first color down. It's obviously been centered, so it's in the right spot. You can see it's that light green that's gone down, and you can see the rego marks there. The next step for us is to get a bit of sticky transparency contact and actually just drop that down on top very carefully. Try not to smooth it out too much. A lot of people do, but they'll make a mistake if they do that, because they'll smudge those rego marks. Now here we are, just starting to look at the setup. So the first thing there I'm playing with is the off contact. It's just too high, and I'm just tightening that up. And I'm getting there's the micro reg being adjusted. But I've come to the conclusion here, I think, that the off contact's too high. Yes, so I'm snapping open the off contact at the back. It's too low, sorry. And I'm just raising it a little at the back. There we go, you saw that go in. And now, because of that, I can tell the pitch, that's the angle at the front of the screen, is a little too high. And I want the screen to be pretty flat here. Otherwise, it won't print so well, even though it's just a little left chest print. So now I'm doing the micro edge, and I'm moving those, what have we got, 5 markers for the rego marks in together. And I'll show you a close-up of that in a moment. And they're just lining up with the previous print that we put down on that black card. Taking my time, making sure that they're all nice and neat and all in. Tightening up the micro edge there. Lift it up, put it down. Always do that in case it moves at all, and just have another quick look just to check it's okay. Okay, go and grab a squeegee, obviously. Hurry up. Okay, simple print. Drop it. We're not worried about the rego markers there. We want to have a look at how that's come out, so get a really good close look. That looks not too bad. The next thing we always do, because we don't want to keep printing ink on the base of each screen, is we just get a wipe and take that off and just dry it with a paper towel. And then we work on the next color. This looks like the gray. And again, I want to just have a quick look where it is, get a sense of the off contact, going straight to the micro edge and moving that in till it's perfect on each side. Don't try and get away with just having a couple of registration marks. You really do want to have a few that surround the image. Otherwise you might be nice and tight and accurate on one side. Lift it up, drop it down, but on the other side it won't work. So having another look, checking they're in, checking the off contact, Just lifting that pitch a little bit. Yep. Get yourself a squeegee. Obviously, that is not that easy to do for some reason. There we go. Found a nice squeegee. Get that ink flooded. Give it a single pass. Let's have a little look at that one. And on this one, I don't know if you can see it, but you can just pick the registration marks out on the left there are grey. That's gone above the green. You can see that when I wipe them off. So just wipe it off again and dry it. Get the next colour out. It's a shame that this particular print job has got two blues that are very close in colour. Here's a close-up of the rego mark, so you can see that blue one is out. You can see I'm just pulling that in. They're the type of rego marks we like to use, very fine. The finer they are, the more accurate it'll be, simple as that. So just making sure that's absolutely spot on. Okay, so you can see that blue's been laid down now, so we'll wipe that off. Dry it off. I believe I just hit the camera with the screen. That's super professional. Okay, and here's this rather small print of a green to go on the top. So again, just snap off the micro edge, move it left or right, pitch it forward or back, and then slide it. There's the back one going. I can only just make this out. You can just see those rego marks at the bottom starting to get lined up there. Unfortunately, that's a shot of my head, which isn't the most interesting. Okay, really taking my time. Again, just snapping those back in, and we'll lift that screen up again, drop it down, have another quick look, check that it hasn't gone out anywhere. And that seems okay, so we're going to grab another squeegee. Very easy little print there, back flood. And that's now ready. So the next stage for this is to actually test it on a t-shirt. Now, you must remember to warm up your platens at this point. It's not good to have them hot when you're doing it with the paper and the transfer paper there, but make sure they're hot. These are actually being warmed up in the interim. I'm just putting an old t-shirt on the top there and just giving that a little bit of heat as well. Just repositioning the camera. Nice. Okay, so let's do a real test. Now, while this is going on, this particular print is going to be a wet on wet print. But when you're checking the registration and printing it on an actual garment, you don't want to do wet on wet, because if you have to move anything, the ink build up on any of the other screens will need to be wiped off and you need to start again with it. So just remember to flash them when you're actually going live. And then when you actually start the print, obviously you want to do the wet on wet and let the ink build up. So you can see all these colors going on. We're just shortcutting the flash. The flash is going on for about 8 seconds for this. We're just cutting it there so that it doesn't take forever to do this video. So I'm already aware that that blue there is slightly out. We'll just get the last screen down to check the symmetry, and you can just see, I hope, that that blue that I'm pointing at there is just slightly out. It's a little bit too far forward. So I'm just going to actually register that, just flash that again. I'm just going to re-register that particular screen on the top. There's a colleague giving me her opinion. So have a quick look again. We'll snap open the rego. It just needs to move. You might find this is a bit pedantic, but it just needs to move about 2 pixels. It pays to be a pedant when it comes to registering. So I'm just moving that tiny amount. I'm going to lay down another hit on it. Now, normally you would just start again here, but you should be able, when you're printing, you should be able to see roughly the difference. And that, I think, has fixed it, even though it's got the old ink underneath. Okay, so that's flashed. I'll do another quick test just because I want to make sure that blue is okay. So this time I'm just going to use that blue, and I'm not sure what other color I'm going to lay down just to check the positioning of that. So this video has been cut down to make it run quicker to around 11 minutes. But I reckon it took about 15 minutes just to make sure the rego is absolutely perfect. That looks a lot better. So again, take your time. You don't want to print 50 or 100 t-shirts and discover that it's not what you're looking for. Okay, still making some final adjustments. Obviously not completely happy with it. A bit of a pedant, but as I said, worth doing, worth getting right. Okay, giving it another quick hit. Give it a final check. Make sure I'm really happy with it. So let's just review the tips and traps for this one, and we'll move on to the next video. Okay, so we covered off the one about taking your time when you set up a registration. It is important. You will get much faster at it, though, obviously, after a while. Let's look at some others. Make sure those registration marks are small, they're thin. You've got some real markers in them that you can measure off against. If they're big and bulky, it would actually be a bit harder. At least I find it harder to register. I like thin, fine registration marks. If you are doing a wet on wet print like this one, this had a bunch of T77 screens so that you don't put too much ink down that gets picked up too much by the next screen. When you're doing your rego, do not do wet on wet. Use print flash print, because if you use wet on wet, all that's going to happen is you're going to get ink on the other screens, on the underside of the other screens, which is obviously what you want when you're printing. But if you have to change the registration, as you saw that I had to there, you actually have to go back and wash off all those screens because they're actually moving a tiny amount, and obviously the ink from them is going to be in the wrong place. So make sure when you're setting it up on a garment, you do print flash print for each color until you're ready to go. And then lastly, just remember to actually test it on a real substrate, in other words, a real t-shirt or hoodie. Don't just print onto that black card or onto any other thin substrate. It's good to get that sharpness when you first start, but when you come to actually do the print run, you might find it's just a little bit different. So make sure that you do go ahead and print on the actual substrate before you actually get started. Well, that's it for a quick 5-color print registration. Thanks for watching. I'd recommend, if you get time, just to tune into the actual, probably a sped up version of the print, because I want to show people how we adjust the actual physical printing once we get a sense of how well that's printing to accommodate any changes that need to happen. And there's a couple of really important tips in that. So stay tuned for that video. For now, thanks very much for watching.